She could have robbed me. Worse. But she seemed to need my help. She told me she lost her wallet, her phone, didn't even have enough money for coffee.
A real damsel in distress.
The man shrugs, seeming rueful.
Miss Ogilvy is involved in an ongoing murder investigation, Mr. Addison. One that involves the death of an undercover narcotics officer and the attempted murder of a young man. She's associated with some very dangerous people, and now she's missing. In order to find her, we have to know everything she's been up to the last few days, everyone she's talked to, everyone she's been in contact with, so tell me what transpired between you two.
The man seems reluctant.
I could subpoena your statement, but that might get messy. And public.
He sighs and sits forward, still keeping his voice lowered. I wasn't in the room with her very long, only an hour or so. I had to leave to come down here.
You left her alone in your room?
I felt bad for her. She had nowhere to go. That's what she said, anyway.
Was she a prostitute?
No money changed hands, if that's what you mean. She made that absolutely clear. He lifts his chin as if he's proud he didn't cheat on his wife with a hooker.
Exactly what time did you last see her on Tuesday?
About 10:30, I guess. I rushed back to the hotel room after my session was finished that day, about 6 or so. I even picked up flowers for her.
He shakes his head.
Stupid, I know. But she was gone when I got back. She left me this.
He reaches in his jacket pocket and retrieves a small piece of hotel paper. Good unfolds it and reads,
Dear Matt, I had to go. Thanks for everything. Love, Kathy, XO.
She said her name was Kathy?
Yeah. For a minute I thought maybe it's not the same person, but it's her, isn't it?
Good doesn't respond. There's no mistaking this woman's face. Any phone calls since Tuesday? Any other contact?
No, nothing. That's it. He glances back and forth. There's another pained smile at a colleague. If you don't mind, I really should be going. I've got a lot left to do today.
Are you sure you didn't see her or talk to her yesterday?
He nods, but swallows a large lump in his throat.
Because we have reason to believe she called your cell at 4:20 yesterday afternoon. There was also a suspicious phone call coming from this hotel to the residence of Jason and Beth Montgomery last night.
Who? I never even heard of them.
Miss Ogilvy was their house guest this week.
Oh, well, okay.
Were you supposed to meet Miss Ogilvy last night, Mr. Addison?
His lips tremble. His breathing is shallow. He closes his eyes and nods. She called me yesterday afternoon, he says. She said she needed a ride somewhere, but I couldn't get away.
Where was she going?
She didn't mention. We were supposed to meet in the lounge last night, but she stood me up.
What did you do when she didn't show?
I had a couple drinks. I tried calling that number. When I couldn't find her, I went back to my room by myself.
Were you alone all night?
Yes.
No witnesses?
How can there be witnesses? I said I was alone. His voice is rising again, and he catches himself, settling down.
Without witnesses, that's not much of an alibi, Mr. Addison. More like a story that I should take your word for.
Alibi? You think she was murdered?
We're investigating the possibility.
You don't think I killed her?
He slaps his chest with one palm.
I barely knew her.
That doesn't exactly let you off the hook.
His shoulders slump, but then he looks up. Room service. I ordered room service. The guy who brought the food would remember me. He'd be a witness, right?
What time did you order?
About 8:30, I guess.
Good makes a note so he can confirm that.
But I couldn't even eat. To tell you the truth, I've been feeling damn guilty about being with her ever since it happened. Now this? Talking to the police?
Timing sucks, doesn't it? Having a missing woman on your hands.
My hands?
Good grins, but doesn't respond. That should be fine for now, Mr. Addison. Meantime, I think I better take this note. He motions with the folded chit.
The man seems forlorn. Do you need it? Could be evidence. And just think, this way, your wife won't find it in your pocket when you get home.
Chapter 62. Beth. Friday morning. The alarm goes off, and Beth reaches over to turn it off, feeling anxious and drained at the same time. She lay awake all night, fighting bouts of nausea, bouts of tears, bouts of panic. Jay was restless too, shifting and fidgeting, his legs working as if he were on a stationary bike. He didn't take a sleeping pill. It would have knocked him out for the meeting with Good. But he didn't talk to her either, so they lay in the quiet darkness, sometimes pretending to be asleep, other times not even bothering, just rustling and sighing and waiting for morning. The sheets were clean. She knew that. She'd changed the bedding herself, but her skin crawled to touch them, as if they'd been rotting in a landfill and were infested with maggots. This bed, her bed, their bed, screaming, panting. She tries to push the images from her mind. She gets out of bed, seeing her reflection in the mirror. The bones of her chest stick out like ripples in beach sand. She looks as if she's lost weight since yesterday. Did they eat dinner last night? No, they didn't. She can't even remember the last time she ate. She looks back at Jay, staring up from his pillow, not smiling. He just nods. His plan from last night runs through her head. I'm going to go for my run, as usual, and you're going to get ready for work, just like always. She looks away from him and goes into the bathroom. Everything had to be normal, he'd said. That was important. She has to make coffee now. She washes her hands, walks out of the bathroom, sees him sitting on the edge of the bed, as if he were trying to find the nerve to jump off a high cliff. Neither of them says anything. She goes to the kitchen to start the coffee maker, pours water, measures the coffee, turns on the switch. But she feels disconnected from her hands, the way she often felt on stage. Sometimes she could watch her hands on the keyboard, but they didn't really look like hands at all. Disjointed, nonsensical things. Staircases, snakes, coils of wire. But not hands, and especially not her hands. This is the way it is as she tries to make coffee. Her hands are something else, and they belong to someone else. She thinks of her husband's hands on her friend's body. She wants to forget it, but she can't. Guiltily, she realizes Jay's infidelity bothers her more than anything Cassie has done. She is used to forgiving Cass for things. She had to do it countless times back in college, but she can't forgive Jay. He was willing to sleep with her best friend inside of 3 days, in their bed. He's a worse person than she could ever have guessed. She hears him fussing about in the bathroom, getting ready for his run. She waits, as she always does, by the coffee maker for the first cup to drip out. She can't believe the way Jay fixated on that money, splattered with blood. He'd acted like some conniving, guilty villain. How had he changed so much since they met? She remembers seeing him at that party, laughing, taller than everyone, smiling, flooded with energy. When he spotted her, she felt electrified by him and flattered as he made his way through the room toward her. She felt an instant connection to him. It was his confidence. She was always so anxious herself. She was attracted to confident people. It was one of the reasons she loved Cass so much. She was drawn to the strength and energy of people who seemed at ease with themselves. She remembered seeing his Princeton school ring, his expensive watch, talking to him about his production company and his big plans for Hollywood. It helped that he was from a good family, a wealthy family. She could tell by the things he talked about, even the things he joked about. What, the Poconos not good enough for you? They started dating later that week and were engaged within 6 months. Beth thought, finally, everything was going to be okay. Like the heroines of her romance novels, she'd found her handsome prince. She could settle down, start a family, put the past behind her. Of course, it wasn't a happy ending at all. How wrong she'd been about everything, especially him. How stupid she'd been to trust him. She had hoped, for a short while, that things were going to get better when she got pregnant, but it was over now, and she won't feel it again. She's sure of it. Hope had a shelf life, turning rancid, becoming something else on a molecular level. Cynicism, depression, despair. But then she floods with anger again. God, he's selfish. Vain and shallow and selfish. How could he do this to her? And Cassie, too. Then again, she knew this was going to happen, didn't she? When she sat in footsies, deciding. She remembers the pressure in her chest. Don't say it. Don't say it. But she felt trapped. She'd always felt trapped by Cassie. She sees Jay come into the kitchen, pulling on a tank top. Everything normal, he repeats in a soft, dangerous voice. She doesn't respond. She watches him jog down the driveway and disappear. He seems taller than she remembers. Different. His energy is unfamiliar. She wonders when this started happening. How long ago had he stopped being her husband and become this stranger? Would she feel this way if Cassie hadn't shown up? Or had she been on a path all along, looking for an excuse to leave him? No, she screams at herself. She can't worry about those things now. She has to focus. There's too much to do, too much to think about. She has to stay calm. Jay's words run through her mind as she hurries down the hall, past the wedding pictures, carrying her coffee cup. We're going to do whatever they want, he'd said, pacing the living room, that crazed energy coursing through him. We're going to cooperate in any way they want. DNA, whatever. I know they can't do anything to me because I did not kill her. And I have no idea where she is. So as long as we stay on the same page, everything's gonna be okay. She tries to focus, tries to concentrate. She's just performing, just watching something all her hands do what they were supposed to do next. But good God, she's nauseated, as if she's been rehearsing a performance for months and today is the big day. Every instinct in her body tells her to run the other way, but at one point it's too late. Gravity takes over and there's no going back. She has to perform. If she doesn't perform, she doesn't exist. The show must go on. You can do this, she tells herself. You're a lotus flower. You can survive anything. Just act normal. That's what Jay said. But it's a lot to ask of her, because whatever normal had once meant, it's something she can never be again.
Chapter 63. Good. Friday morning. Good is at the window overlooking the North Wilcox parking lot when the Montgomery cars pull in. After talking to Addison, he came back to the station and gave Dawes the details on the meeting, then went to wait at the window. He wanted to see them arrive, to observe how they interacted when they didn't know they were being watched. Even from a distance, and through bulletproof glass, he hears the throaty growl of the red Mustang as it pulls into the lot. The Navy Audi follows behind. Good is fascinated by how much of an extension a person's car is of themselves. Not just the color or the style, but the way someone handles a vehicle. The red Mustang, owned by a wannabe film producer, almost screeches at a 90-degree angle into a parking spot, decisively stopping on a dime. The Navy Audi, belonging to a music teacher, slows down, hesitates, then turns in slowly, nudging to a stutter of small stops, before finally settling in. The lot is busy on a Friday morning, so they can't park side by side. As soon as they get out of their cars, Good notices them look around and seek each other out. They meet halfway between the parking spots, even though it means a longer walk to the main doors. He narrows his eyes, straining to see their mouths moving, but their beige faces look still.
He doesn't believe they say a word to each other as they take matching steps toward the entrance and out of view. But he noticed they came in separate cars. Could be force of habit, or it could be a sign of something amiss. Dawes comes up behind him. They here?
8 minutes early.
Impressive. He knows Montgomery will be in processing for at least half an hour. His cheek will be swabbed for DNA. His fingerprints will be taken, and his photo. His dutiful wife will sit in the waiting room outside, like he's seen 1,000 wives, mothers, and hookers do. I've got more on them. She holds up 2 thin files. Interested?
Very.
They walk toward the squad room side by side, Dawes holding a file open. There is a symbiotic dynamic in the station, and everyone understands it. 2 homicide detectives working on a breaking case get the right of way, so uniforms step aside to let them pass, as if for a cruiser with its lights flashing on the interstate. Not much on the woman, Dawes says. She's a music teacher, has been for 6 years. Used to play piano professionally. Recorded 1 CD.
Saw that.
They reach their desks, barely 10 feet apart in the squad room. I don't have her full history yet, but check this out. The guy? Originally from Beverly Hills. Went to Princeton. Producer now. Nothing big. She stops and looks at him, grinning.
Sounds like there's a but.
Oh, there's a but, all right. There are actually some big buts.
Fantastic. Nothing I like more than big butts.
Dawes sighs. He loves the expression she makes when she's trying not to smile, the way her lips purse, making her cheekbones pop. He also loves that she perseveres without commenting. Not counting the $1 million+ they owe on the house in the hills, he's into the bank for over $400,000. There's an $80,000 second mortgage on the house, about $70,000 on credit cards. He also has a business loan for $200,000 with his partner Karen Burns of Burmont Films. Good can't decide if he's surprised or not. He remembers that house, the gleaming furniture, the happy photographs he didn't trust.
I never would have guessed they were so broke. They looked so, I don't know, pink.
They're not pink, she says. Not even close. I'm saving the biggest butt for last.
You spoil me.
She hands him another file. His eyebrows shoot up when he reads it.
That's a big butt, all right.
He senses their presence before he actually looks up, a sort of hesitant shadow in his peripheral vision. In the squad room, absolutely everyone moved with practiced authority. Nobody dawdled. Everyone had somewhere to go. But victims and criminals didn't enjoy being in a police squad room. The victims were confused and the criminals were nervous, so they both behaved the same way, like tourists without a map in a bad neighborhood, trying not to get mugged. Good luck, Dawes says, noticing them too. She wheels her chair back to her desk. Good waves, and they see him, both lifting their heads and smiling, as if meeting someone for a dinner reservation. They seem aware of the inappropriateness of their expressions, and their smiles fade as they walk over.
Mr. and Mrs. Montgomery, he begins, back to the formalities.
Thank you so much for coming.
Of course, says Jay.
Have you heard anything from her yet? Beth asks.
I'm afraid not. Please, have a seat.
They take 2 chairs across from his desk, and Good sits down too. He observes them without saying anything at first, crossing his fingers on his belly, leaning back, stretching out his legs. Don't speak unless you have something specific to ask them. Just let them talk, because sooner or later, if they were hiding something, they'd give themselves away. Guilty people always did. As the silence draws out, the awkwardness of the situation mushrooms before everyone. Jay looks back and forth between Good and his wife. Good just sits there, waiting.
I told her, Jay says finally. About...
Good lets his voice drag out. The guy didn't expect to have to be specific. It would seem too rude. But Good will make him be specific. He just sits there.
About
yesterday, Jay says. He clears his throat, and sits up a little straighter, shifts his weight in the chair. It's an awful lot of fidgeting. Meanwhile, his wife sits with her back straight, her hands clutching the handle of the purse in her lap. You mean about you and Miss Ogilvy having intercourse? Good asks. Sometimes he can't believe his own nerve. He should have been a stand-up comic. He has no fear, no boundaries. He isn't proud of it. He can't help himself, which is why he's slightly remorseful when he sees the woman's eyes widen in shock. Clearly, she's trying to forget things. She may not know it yet, but she won't be able to forget, no matter how hard she wants to. I felt I had to tell her, Jay continues, especially after everything that's happened. Well, that's very big of you, Mr. Montgomery, Good says. He turns to Beth. And you're okay with all this? She cocks her head on an angle, as if considering it. That's not exactly the word I'd use, but... But we're gonna be okay, Jay interrupts. We're gonna work it out. Good looks briefly at Montgomery, then turns to the wife. That true? A moment passes, and she nods in resignation. Good sighs, then winds the conversation around. No use torturing them. He isn't a marriage counselor. He moves on, sliding the crime scene photos out of the way, opening another file. We ran a check on that number you said your friend dialed from your cell, he tells Beth. He sorts through the photographs, searching for the single sheet of paper he needs. He doesn't have to do this. He could have been prepared, but he wants to see their reaction, so he pushes the gory crime scene photos from Lawrence Heights back and forth across his desk. He notices them look down, then quickly up again, as if they were on the roof of a skyscraper, and the height might make them pass out. He slides a piece of paper over to Beth and circles a line on the page. 10:20 p.m. Tuesday night. Your friend didn't call a Lily or anyone else that night. She called a payphone at LAX that never picked up. She must have been listening to it ring. Why would she lie about that? Maybe you can tell me. She seems to think about it. Maybe this Lily friend of hers doesn't exist? That'd be my guess. What about the club in Monterey? She's not listed anywhere that we could find. She's not playing the jazz festival, that's for sure. So she lied about that too? Looks like. The woman lets out a breath, as if she's been holding it for years. She actually seems relieved. Speaking of phones, Good says, retrieving Jay's cell from his desk drawer. Still in an evidence bag, it's smeared with fingerprint powder, but the blood has been scraped off for analysis. He places it on the desk between them. Jay picks it up, handling it gingerly. The battery's dead, he says. Sorry about that. That's okay, he says, still happy to be reunited with his phone. Everyone is quiet for a moment before Dawes breaks the silence, right on cue. I got that info you asked for, she says, dropping a file in front of Good. Thanks. You two ever meet my partner? Michelle Dawes, she says, shaking their hands. Beth smiles weakly, but Jay barely looks up. I'm doing a coffee run. You guys want anything? They both shake their heads. Of course they don't want anything. They just want to get the hell out of here. Good says, Gatorade. What color? Surprise me. She leaves the three of them alone again. Good watches the couple for a moment. You like Gatorade? I don't know what it is about that stuff, but I can't stop drinking it. It's like I'm addicted or something. It's the electrolytes, Jay explains. The what? Electrolytes. I drink it sometimes myself, too. It's manufactured that way, so you keep drinking more. Helps replenish your fluids after workouts. So it's like you can never get enough? No matter how much you drink? Jay nods. Kinda, yeah. That explains it. There's another awkward silence. Good looks down at the file Dawes gave him, peruses it a moment, then takes a big breath as if he's not sure how to proceed. Mr. Montgomery, you have a criminal record? I'm sorry? Jay laughs. I don't have a record. He glances at his wife, who frowns at him. That's true, I guess you don't. The charge was expunged. Exactly, Jay says. What charge? Beth asks, frowning. What's he talking about? She doesn't know. Know what? She asks. It doesn't matter, Jay says. I think it does, Good says. This isn't the first time that you've been involved in a violent crime against a woman. Jay, what is he talking about? She turns to him, her cheeks reddening. I'm not involved in anything, he says. He rubs his eyes hard, clenching his jaw, then bunches his fists up on the arms of the chair. What is going on? She asks, looking back and forth between the men. It was a mistake, Jay says. A misunderstanding. What is this about? Beth demands, her voice rising. Shh, Jay says. Jesus, do we have to talk about this now? I can't imagine a better time, says Good. Would you like me to tell her? I will. I don't have a record, though, right? He looks at Good challengingly. I think that's unfair, saying I have a record. It was expunged. That's true. I'm sorry to offend you. The woman seems baffled, blinking, her cheeks still flushed. I'll explain it to her, okay? It has nothing to do with this. It was years ago. We can do this all in private. He stands up. Now, I'm afraid I have a meeting, so if that's everything... Actually, it's not, Good says. There's one more thing. We need your car. The guy sits down again. Mine? Routine search, no big deal. He sighs loudly, turns to his wife. Can I borrow yours? I have to be at the Ivy at 1. She nods, still preoccupied. He reaches in his pocket for his keys, handing them to Good. It's a red Mustang. License? A needless question. JAYM1. Cute, Good says. He twirls the keychain on his finger. Shouldn't take long. Couple days at most. Thanks for coming by. They stand up quickly, but then hesitate, as if they've just given condolences to someone at a funeral and aren't certain if they've done enough and can leave now. Finally, they turn away. Good watches them walk to the elevator. Wait. Maybe they speak. Maybe they don't. But if they say anything, it isn't much. The elevator comes, they step inside, turn around. Neither of them looks at him as the doors close. Good stands up and goes to the window again, watching as they emerge from the lip of the building. They move quickly, straight toward the Audi. They're talking, he can tell, the way they tilt their heads toward each other. Jay tries to grab his wife's arm, but she pulls away from him. He's the one who goes to the driver's side. He talks over the roof of the car. No question about it now. He's not shutting up. They get inside. Good watches the car make quick, decisive moves out of the parking lot before disappearing into the steady, seeping stream of traffic.
Chapter 64. Beth. Friday morning. Answer me, Beth says, glaring at her husband. What was he talking about? What record? I don't have a record, Jay insists, swerving through traffic. Then what did he mean? Never mind. We can talk about it later. I don't want to talk about it later. I want to talk about it now. She can't believe any of this. It feels as if she's stepped into someone else's life. As if it wasn't bad enough waiting outside a place called the processing department before they met with Good. The shabby people who came and went, street bums, prostitutes, drug dealers. It terrified and humiliated her, and now Jay's a criminal too? It's too much. Jason! What was he talking about? Tell me. Jay's driving fast, aggressively, veering back and forth through traffic. It makes her want to throw up. In school, Jay says. Years ago. Something happened. In college? Yeah, this crazy party. Off campus. A girl, she was drunk. And so was I. He's still swerving and speeding. And it got a little rough. But I didn't do anything she didn't want me to do. I'm serious. He looks at her. We were both so drunk I barely remember any of it. But I know one thing. I didn't hurt her or anything. I didn't. Anyway, the next day she said... His voice trails off. She narrows her eyes on him. That you raped her? Date raped, okay? There's a difference. Are you kidding me, Jay? I can't believe you. There's no difference. He turns to her, adamant. Beth, you weren't there. Watch the road. Her heart is hammering. She was into it. You said you were drunk. How do you even know? Because there are snippets, memories. She puts her hands over her ears. I don't want to hear this. You said you wanted me to explain, so I am. She was into it. I'm telling you, she was into it. Stop! Her hands are still on her ears, but she can't drown him out. How was I supposed to know she'd call the cops the next day? Stupid bitch. She set me up. Oh my God, my God. She looks out the window at the baked palm trees, the sun-bleached buildings. My God. It was just a stupid misunderstanding, that's all. She was a liar. Beth looks at him, his chest heaving, his face blotched red. How did she know nothing about the man she married? Who the hell are you? She hisses at him. It was years ago. You're overreacting. It was nothing. Nothing? Are you kidding? How can I believe anything you say anymore? How am I supposed to believe you didn't go somewhere and hurt Cass too? Beth, stop! There's no way I'd... They're talking over each other. Maybe you had a plan to take that money or something. Jesus Christ, you're imagining things. You and Cass, maybe. And then you changed your mind. Did you do something to her? Tell me. Beth, you're acting crazy. I said no. Why should I believe you? You're a fucking liar! The emotions, the rage, the car careering back and forth, it makes her so dizzy. She feels sick. What the hell is happening to her life? She wants to vomit. She hasn't felt this way since she was pregnant. Could it be? No, it's impossible. They haven't had sex since the miscarriage. She doesn't even want his child anymore. She wants to get away from him. Forever. That's all she wants. He's still trying to explain. Nothing. She was drunk. She was into it. Years ago. She suddenly feels as if she's not in a car, but in a boat on a roiling ocean. There's no perspective. She can barely hear her husband's voice. When he pulls up in front of the academy, it startles her. She can't believe they're here already. The car idles. Normal. Remember? Everything normal. Jesus, Jay. Relax, he snaps. We can talk about it later. Everything's going to be fine. What do you usually do when you get to work? Beth can hardly think. She points to the Starbucks next door. I usually get a coffee. Then you're gonna get a coffee. She puts her hand on the door handle to get out, but stops. Jay, this just feels so wrong. Don't worry about it. Everything's gonna be fine. Just don't do anything out of the ordinary. Not until we know for sure what's going on. Call me when you're done, he says. I'll come get you. Okay, she says, feeling weak. What are you going to do? I'm meeting Camiso for lunch later, but right now I'm gonna do something just for fun. What's that? He cracks a wide grin, revving the engine a bit. I'm gonna go home and finish counting our money. Beth can't believe the smile on his face. He never seemed able to make that expression before. It's as if he's had some kind of stroke. He leans forward to kiss her, but she lurches away. She doesn't want him to touch her. She opens the door and the warm air wafts in. How strange it feels to be getting out of the passenger side. She slams the door closed. As she watches him drive away, there's a sharp tug low in her stomach. She hates seeing him behind the wheel of her car, because it's happened only twice before. On the way to the hospital when she started bleeding. And on the way back from the hospital when it was all over. She didn't even take the day off. She had students. She had to walk upstairs, into her studio, sit on the piano bench, bleed into the strange, bulky sanitary napkin they'd given her at the hospital after the miscarriage. She had to sit there and feel empty.
Chapter 65. Jay. Friday morning. Jay hurries into the house, his cheeks aching from smiling so much. What a break. His luck is changing. He can feel it, like a piston in his chest, gaining momentum. It takes guts to do what he's doing, but sometimes you have to push yourself. Sometimes you have to do things you never dreamed of doing to get ahead in life. To be successful in business, you have to be ruthless. That's what his dad always said. If you let an opportunity slip by, no matter how risky, you might as well just curl up and die on the spot because there's no guarantee another chance is going to come by anytime soon. You just have to have the courage to see it through. But how lame Good mentioned that bitch. He could tell the news had freaked Beth out. It pissed him off. He thought he was done with all that. Alistair said his record was expunged. Nobody would ever know. A mistake could happen to anyone. Yet the memory was so much like yesterday with Cassie. The pressure of his hands on her flesh. She wanted it. Cassie wanted it. The way that girl wanted it too. Beth wasn't like that, but some girls were. She wouldn't understand. None of this was even his fault. Cassie was just another random slut trying to bring him down. Well, she couldn't, could she? No matter how hard she tried, neither of them could. And now it was all going to be worth it. He pulls off his suit jacket and grabs a beer from the fridge, pops it open, and takes a long slug. It's early for a drink, but he has to calm his nerves. He hurries down the hall to the linen closet, grabs the blue gym bag from the shelf, and carries it back, setting it on the coffee table. He unzips the bag, astounded all over again by the sight of that cash. He dumps the bag onto the coffee table, where the money lands in a sliding mound of green, some of it falling onto the floor. It feels like winning the goddamn lottery. If you had asked him a week ago if he was capable of the plan he was pulling off now, he would have said, in another life, maybe. Yet now that it's happening, it all feels so natural. It invigorates him. It's the biggest rush he's ever had. It makes him feel like someone else, or maybe someone he's always been, if the people around him had only seen his potential from the beginning. Funny, he isn't even afraid of getting caught. Not really. He'd never been a fatalist before, but he's starting to believe that things happen for a reason. Seeing this money made him think that. Meeting Cassie made him think that. As horrible as it all was, as bad as he feels about everything, if Beth hadn't invited Cassie to stay with them, he never would have found this money. And now with Cassie gone, it's theirs. His. Things were rolling his way. Finally. He takes another slug of his beer and begins counting the cash. Every time he picks up a roll of money and unwraps the elastic, he flips through the stack quickly, like a blackjack dealer handling cards. After a while, he doesn't have to count each bill because he knows the pattern. 100 bills per roll. That's $10,000. 20 stacks. 30 stacks. 40. He uses the calculator on his laptop as if he's working on the film budget. When he looks up from the money, it's later than he thought. It's time to leave for his meeting. The crick in his neck is painful and his back is stiff, but at the same time, he feels elated. Pain is something different now. Like everything else, it seems to energize him. He zips the bag back up and shoves it onto the shelf of the linen closet. On his way out of the house, he texts Beth.
Chapter 66. Beth. Friday afternoon. Beth sits on the piano bench while one of her students murders the memory of Mozart. She feels her blazer pocket vibrate with a text. She pulls out her phone, checking the screen. She grits her teeth when she sees it. Over $1 million. Keep playing, she says, standing up, letting herself out of the studio, closing the door behind her. The hall is empty. She's alone. She rarely hears what the hall sounds like during a midday lesson. The din of instruments is bizarre and muffled, as if she's walked into an invisible circus. She can't tell if it's a happy sound or a depressing one, but it's monotonous. So many scales, up and down, pointlessly, endlessly. The same notes she'd played all her life, that they all played over and over again. The absurd but necessary practice of a language that made no sense. She checks the cell again, and an inward peal of anger rushes through her. How stupid can he be? He's telling her to try to be normal, and he's texting this kind of information? She can't believe it. She dials, and Jay picks up. Hey, babe, isn't that incredible? He's laughing. She can tell by his voice that he's in his car. We're millionaire. Jason, not on the phone, she hisses. Don't be stupid. She looks over her shoulder, making sure she's still alone. She is. So alone. She paces the hall, wondering when she became such an expert at how to handle all of this. Sorry, man. Sorry. Stupid, I know. I'm just so blown away. She rides out another wave of rage. Her head pounds. Blam! Blam! Like the metronome inside the room. All she wants to do is scream at him right now, but she can't because she's so angry she'd yell over the instruments and everyone would hear. Babe? You okay? He doesn't call her babe much anymore. It drops her into a different time in her life, a year ago or more. Back then, their life wasn't perfect either. They had money problems, but not nearly as bad as now. Things were starting to heat up on Jay's film. He was so excited and confident about it. She hadn't gotten pregnant yet, but she was sure it would happen soon. Watching the little blue lines on the pregnancy tests, taking her folic acid, buying baby things on sale. It was all still potential. Their marriage was full of hope. But it had been such a bad year. Beth? He prods her again. You okay? I'm having trouble concentrating. Well, no kidding, so am I. But you're gonna have to try. Everything normal, remember? Nothing out of the ordinary. Why did you text me at work then? You say act normal, but then you do this? When's the last time you even thought about me during the day, let alone... Beth, calm down, please. She takes a deep breath. Have you had lunch? He asks. What? Lunch. Have you gone for lunch? I'm not hungry. You're supposed to... But he stops. He must know how ridiculous he sounds, because if he says act normal one more time, she'll throttle him. Look, you need to eat, he insists. Go grab a sandwich or something. I said I'm not hungry. Then go get some air. Get a coffee. You need to chill out. His tone of voice shocks her. Yes, she has to calm down, or this would all go wrong. She should go out for a coffee, get some fresh air, clear her head. I'm serious, he continues, in an in-charge mood, the way he was last night when he hatched the plan. The way he used to be. As strange as it is, she misses that about him. He'd been so dashing when she'd met him, so confident. But he'd been floundering for so long that now she was floundering too. Both of them treading water, trying to reach a life raft that keeps floating away the harder they swim for it, unable to save themselves, losing strength, out of breath. They couldn't even help each other anymore. If they so much as linked hands, they'd pull each other under and drown. She kept telling herself, just be strong, just be patient, just keep going. She's a lotus flower. She'd been through worse than this. And there is an escape hatch now. That cash would help. They say money can't buy happiness, but neither do poverty or debt. She can vouch for that. He continues, the confident, charming Jay. Beth, I know this is hard, and I'm sorry. I really am. She feels as if he's in a pitch meeting, the way he's acting so smooth. I hate having to put you through this. Why didn't you tell me about that girl? What was I going to tell you? That some slut tried to blackmail me in college? Jason! I'm serious. That's what happened. Just forget it, okay? We can talk about it later. We have to stay cool right now. We're on the same team, remember? Everything's gonna be okay. I promise. Look, I gotta go. I've gotta... Wait, she says. Wait! What is it? She holds her head, which aches so badly it feels as if her skull is crushing her. But she has to ask him. She has to know. Have you ever done this before? Done this? He laughs. Of course not. No, I mean, have you cheated on me before? What? Are you kidding, Beth? Are we really talking about this now? I don't mean Cassie. I mean before that. With Emily or Karen or someone else. There's a moment of silence on the phone. Nothing but the bizarre, muffled circus around her. Beth, please, I told you to... I asked, have you ever slept with Emily or Karen? Beth, they're my friends. So? You slept with my best friend. Why wouldn't you do it with yours? She's not your best friend. Are you... Just answer me. Of course not, he barks. It's just Cassie, then? His voice is quieter, soothing. Just... Yes. Of course. Look, I can't get into this now. I'm almost there. Let's talk about it. Did you fall for her? Who? Cassie. God, no. Her voice softens. Did you hurt her? Beth, please. Just tell me, Jay. I have to know. I told you already. No, goddammit. Just please try to relax, okay? I'm serious. I know I fucked up, but everything's gonna be all right. I promise. Everything's gonna be great. I'll see you after work. We can celebrate in style. And then he's gone. Beth looks at the screen. Call ended.
Chapter 67. Good. Friday afternoon. Good's line of work doesn't normally take him onto the palm-lined boulevards of Beverly Hills, but he has to talk to John Montgomery. It's been almost 72 hours since the shootings, and their only lead, Cassie Ogilvy, has vanished. If he doesn't find her, or some other connection to Squires' supplier, the task force will close in. The LAPD might be one of the largest police forces in the country, but it's still dwarfed by the feds. Which is why he wants to talk to Montgomery, to confirm the phone call from yesterday. Did he speak with Ogilvy? Did he see her? Does he know where she is? He also wants to learn more about the son. They say the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree. Are both men capable of violence? He follows the bends in the dark asphalt, staring out at the mansions. When he gets to the right address, there's a gate, but it's open, so he drives through. The big double door is white and carved, There's a doorbell and a knocker, but Good forgoes both. He likes to announce his arrival manually, pounding on the door with the side of his fist. Bang, 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 bang. A moment later, a short Latina woman opens it. She wears a pale blue uniform with an apron. Good thinks the getup is ridiculous and immediately feels sorry for her. Is Mr. John Montgomery in? No, sir, says the woman, smiling. She has a Spanish accent. She seems polite, but Good notices her gaze flit toward his car, then a furrow form between her dark brows. When she looks at him again, her eyes have narrowed, and she's not smiling anymore. Could you tell me where he is, please? I don't think so, sir, the woman says, starting to close the door. But at the same time, another voice joins in. A woman with silver hair emerges from the shadows above the maid's shoulder, a questioning look on her face. Who's there is... When she sees him, a deflated sound comes out of her. Oh. Good can tell she distrusts him immediately. Mrs. Montgomery? He asks, taking a little bow. He crosses his hands in front of his crotch and plasters a big, fake smile on his face. Yes? She's so nervous, her voice stutters, and that one small word, yes, has about 6 syllables. My name is Detective Francis Good. I'm with the Los Angeles Police Department. He presents his badge, then gives her his card in a move so slick it's almost a magician's sleight of hand. She sees the word homicide, and her wrinkled throat jerks like a bobbing apple core as she swallows. She goes back to stuttering. Yes? I'd like to speak to your husband, please. I'm afraid he's not in. Do you know where he might be? He's golfing. It's very important that I speak with him as soon as possible. Do you know where he's golfing? At the club, she says. The Rosedale Park. Thank you kindly, he says, clicking his heels as he backs away. I appreciate your cooperation. Have a nice day. He feels her watching him as he walks back to his car. He could question her about Montgomery's whereabouts last night, but it would be too much of a tip-off. She might call and warn him Good was coming. She might do that anyway, but no use supplying the details of the case. As he gets behind the wheel, she's still standing in the doorway, staring at his card. He roars away, giving the gas a little extra kick so the tires squeal before he gets to the gate. The Rosedale Park Golf and Country Club appears out of the greenery, an elegant Georgian estate. Good glides up to the curb, where a valet is waiting for him, opening his door. Welcome to the Rosedale, sir, he says, smiling. Good has no idea how to navigate this situation. He's never interviewed anyone on a golf course before. He flaps open his badge. I'd like to speak with a member, please. Could you tell me how I might do that? Maybe you should talk to the concierge, sir, the young man says. She's inside. I'll do that, thanks. Good strides up a broad set of white steps, where another helpful lad smiles. Welcome to the Rosedale, sir, he says, opening the big double door. Thank you. That's very kind, Good says, surprised. He prepared himself for some resistance, maybe even a fight. He enters a large lobby featuring the kind of polished wood and high ceilings he associates with cathedrals. A pretty brunette sits at an antique partner's desk ahead of him. The girl smiles in such a welcoming way, he would have approached her even without the sign on her desk. Concierge, Ashley. May I help you, sir? She asks. She has the kind of face that was made to smile. Must be clothespins in her cheeks holding up her lips. Good introduces himself, shows his badge, mentions that he's got to talk to Mr. John Montgomery. The smile doesn't falter as the young woman picks up a phone and says she'll call the assistant manager. Mr. Sullivan? I have a guest here who'd like to speak to Mr. Montgomery. Thank you. She hangs up, still smiling. He'll be right out. Good nods, looking around at the polished furniture. Everything's so huge. Chairs, tables, mirrors. It's as if giants live here. There's a shop of golf clothes across the lobby, full of blues and yellows and ridiculous greens. Beyond the jungle of pastels and primary colors, another young woman is visible, like something camouflaged in the forest. She sits at a counter, flipping through a magazine. Less than a minute later, a blond man in his 40s, wearing a very crisp suit, appears from the hallway. If not for the fact that he wears a brass name tag that reads William B. Sullivan, M.A., Assistant Manager, Good would have thought he'd just come from a wedding, standing as someone's best man. "May I help you, sir?" he asks, smiling with perfect white teeth. Good goes through the routine. "I'm sorry, sir, but we can't interrupt members while they're on the course, especially since the mayor is in the Montgomery foursome today." "The mayor?" Good asks. He's impressed. "I'd be delighted to have you wait in the club room if you like. They probably won't be more than 45 minutes. "That'll be fine." He nods goodbye to Ashley as the assistant manager takes him through yet another set of double doors into a large, dim room full of brass and glass and empty tables. A young man sits folding napkins in the corner, and another pretty girl is behind the bar polishing glasses. "Please have a seat," says the manager, pointing to the tables and chairs. "Holly, get Mr. Good something to drink while he waits." "Of course," she says, coming out from behind the bar. She's obviously gone to the same smiling tutor as Ashley. "What can I get for you, sir?" "Got any Gatorade?" "Sure. What flavor would you like?" He's surprised. Most restaurants don't stock Gatorade. "Which ones do you have?" "All of them," she says. "Like 21 of them?" "Well, maybe not that many," she laughs, "but several." "Surprise me then," he says with a grin. "Of course." She turns and whisks back behind the bar. Good looks around, noticing a set of French doors leading outside. Despite the fact the restaurant is empty, the large veranda is full of guests at tables, various shades of silver, white, and dyed blonde heads bobbing and turning and nodding. Of course, everyone would be out there on a beautiful Friday afternoon. It's a little hard for him not to join them. He's a curious person, and he's never been to a private country club before. He crosses the portal from the dim room into the brilliant, bright outdoors. The plates are full of succulent burgers and salads and poached fish. The silver heads bob and smile. Some people look at him curiously, but not as many as he'd think. He finds an empty table and sits down, adjusts another chair and puts his foot up on it, leaning back. He surveys the domain. Rolling green grasses and manicured trees, tiny figures moving around at a relaxed pace. White golf carts seem to float like sailboats on an emerald sea. He's never seen anything like it. It's a secret paradise inside of Los Angeles. He grew up here, thought he knew every inch of the city, but this is totally new to him. How were they keeping this from him? From all of them? He always suspected that rich people had secret places like this, but it seemed more like a conspiracy theory than any possible truth. If it weren't so damned impressive, he'd cry. The girl named Holly comes over with a blue Gatorade. "How's this?" she asks. She sets down a glass and pours it for him. "That's just marvelous." "Enjoy." "I'm sure I will." His drink is half gone when he notices the assistant manager get into a red golf cart, the only red one Good can see, and roar toward the 18th hole. Good sits forward as Sullivan gets out and approaches men rolling up in 2 white carts. There is some discussion. All 4 heads turn in the direction of the clubhouse. Good still can't get over it. He better tread carefully. The mayor may have time to golf with the 1%ers, but he's also on the task force. The assistant manager collects him a few minutes later and brings him down a paneled hallway to his own office. "Mr. Montgomery will be here momentarily," he says, then bows away. Good waits. The office is imposing. Bankers' lamps, paintings of horses,
Lots of leather furniture and photographs of men and women posing for group shots. Ladies' championships. PGA tournaments. Fundraising balls. "Hello?" a man's voice